All right, man, we're jumping back into another episode. Man, this is going to be a fun one. We've got a great guest today. We've got Adam Levin of Chuck Levin's Washington Music Center. Man, okay, I got it right.
Got it.
Man, Adam, great to have you on the show, man.
Thanks a lot. Big fan. Love the show, and really happy to be here.
Well, you know what? We're really hoping, you're the expert here. So, man, if you can kind of critique us as we go to make us better, maybe we can kind of appreciate it. Just don't make it too harsh, okay?
For sure, for sure. I'll go
So,
easy on you guys.
yeah, very cool. So, hey, man, you got some ties with MIRC. You and Jason go back. You've been friends. He's been friends with your family for a long time, man. Just kind
Long
of a
time.
long time. Give us a little bit of background about who you are and where you come from.
So, like I said, my name is Adam Levin. Chuck Levin's Washington Music Center was started by my grandfather in 1958
Mm,
in downtown Washington, D.C. Um, Small, like a true mom and pop, 2 rooms, husband and wife, just slinging gear and helping the music community in the city.
yeah.
Um, Part of the story is when Martin Luther King was assassinated in '68, our store was actually looted and burned to the ground. And from that, and I know that's kind of a interesting thing to talk about these days, but from that we moved out to where we are now in Wheaton, and we've been there for the last 52 years.
Okay.
And now we have 100+ employees, and we have you do everything from pro audio to band and orchestral to guitars, drums, synths, and everything in between.
Yeah, man. I Jason was telling me too that, and correct me if I'm wrong. You guys supply a lot of the military bands there in Washington D.C.
We're close by, so we do a lot of work with government agencies and government bands
Mm,
around the world. But yeah, I mean, Pershing Zone and all kinds of military bands and stuff like that. It's fun business. They do great stuff. They have phenomenal musicians, incredible
I can
studios.
imagine.
They're fun. They're really fun to work with.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Well, man, I know this year has been, I mean, crazy.
Crazy.
Anybody alive right now knows that 2020 needs to end anytime. But how have you guys adapted? I mean, you guys got a lot going on. I know, obviously, like the rest of the world, March hit and people started shutting things down and then trying to reopen up. Man, just how's this year been? What have you guys been doing to adapt?
It's nothing like I expected it would be when the writing was on the wall, and things started getting a little dicey and hairy, and we didn't know what was going on, kind of, getting into early March and mid-March. um I had a lot of assumptions, and I made a lot of assumptions about how things would be and how things would go, and I turned out to be wrong in a lot of ways, and I'm happy that I was wrong in a lot of ways.
Mm,
um it's interesting, just kind of, I observe a lot of things. I'm not a musician myself. I look at the numbers and the math of this kind of stuff. And so it's like,
mhm.
it's interesting to me to observe how this has gone down. Um, we shut our doors March 23rd. We all went home, and I picked up my desktop computer, my gigantic screen, and brought it home with me, and just was like, I just got to figure out what we're going to do and answer customers' emails and stuff like that. And very quickly, um, we had our website up, and we were working on redesigning it and relaunching it, chucklevins.com. And um, we just kept everyone working. We kept the
Mm,
web team pushing hard and getting more products lit up, and in the same time, we had to like redo the infrastructure of it to allow for what we were assuming was going to come, was curbside pickup and stuff like that. So
yeah.
we had to actually develop some tools around that. But what was remarkable, and what was, some things you could guess, people needed USB microphones or people needed headphones and things like that, but people needed music,
Yeah.
which was very cool, and totally changed my mind about things very quickly.
Mm,
Um, Still trying to be as safe as possible. Like I said, we have 100 employees, and so a lot of what I was trying to do was just keep people busy, and keep them engaged, and keep them a part of the family and a part of the team. Um, and you know, my uncle and my aunt are also in the store every day, and my uncle's been in the store every single day since he was 15 years old, 14 years old,
okay.
probably earlier than that.
Mm,
So when we shut down, he had to come in. He
Yeah.
had to be in the store and
Yeah.
just make sure things were okay.
Didn't know what to
And
do,
I
huh?
didn't know what to do, but at the same time knew exactly what to do,
Oh,
which
okay.
was people are placing orders online. I'm gonna ship this stuff out. I'm gonna go around, and he's in his 60s, and he had maybe 3 or 4 other people in the store with him, and we got 6 buildings. I mean, it's not like it's
Do
just
you
like
really? My goodness.
not just like reaching across the shelf to find the thing and then putting it in a box. People running around all over the place. So he made it happen that we could actually continue to do business even while being shut down. And the rules in Maryland were that you could operate a web business, you could operate a fulfillment center, you couldn't have customers, you couldn't do curbside pickup, but you could ship things.
Yeah.
And so there were days when he would just load up his car with as much stuff as he could fit, and if it didn't fit, then he would just do it the next day. And so I give him a lot of credit. He
Yeah.
was in there doing a lot of stuff, and that built a lot of momentum for us coming back. Sure, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. It's not like it was our greatest time ever. We do a lot of things. We do a lot with schools, which has been a very interesting
Yeah, I can
world. We do a
imagine.
lot with venues, and we have a significant amount of pro audio business, live sound, and venues and production companies, which also is extremely hard hit, as we all know. But the consumer side of music, people reaching to music to keep busy or to stay happy and to stay upbeat and just lift their souls out of the chaos around them, was remarkable. And it was every category. It
Yeah.
was drums and trumpets and guitars and keyboards, and it's been pretty wild.
Yeah, man, and I can imagine. Online sales went up like 17.7% from the over year to year back in May, and it was crazy. I just remember here at MIRC, we were at home. We went home. We were the same way as you. And April, we decided we could, based off of the rules here, we could have a small core group that came into the building to fulfill. But man, we were right away. We had customers emailing, going, "Hey, are you guys open?" And we're like, "Well, kind of. We're trying to figure this out." And they're like, "Well, whenever you open, I need to place an order. I need guitars." I'm like, "Seriously?" We're like, "What's going on?" And it was this, all of a sudden it was just wham! It just exploded. And then April, May got even busier, and then June and July. And then, as people kind of started, things kind of leveled off. But here we are going into the fall, and man, it has not let up. The music industry, retail music industry, has exploded this year.
It's exploded, and everyone's felt a lot of emotions. I felt a lot of emotions going like, should I be marketing right now? Like, people are going to be like starving or not. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do. But very quickly, I got very similar emails. Are you guys open? Are you guys cool? Like, are you guys okay? I basically ended up doing customer service for every which way that we were interacting with customers, just because I'm on the purchasing side of things. I could dish the emails out to salespeople if they had questions. So I was kind of like sitting in the middle of all customer communication.
Yeah.
I learned a lot being in that position and seeing how people were responding, what they needed, what they wanted, that they cared, and that they needed. They didn't really, in some instances, especially back in March and April and May, didn't really care about necessarily a specific thing. They just wanted something to keep them busy.
Yeah,
They
that's
wanted,
exactly right.
oh, you don't have that guitar? I'll take this guitar. That's fine.
It's
That's cool.
crazy. Yeah.
Oh, you have one on the shelf? Whatever. Just box it up and ship it to me. So like all kinds of stuff like
Yeah.
that. And
No, it's
really, really interesting to observe, really heartwarming in a lot of ways, and just reinforced that, the industry that we're in is super cool.
mhm.
It's not like anything else. It keeps people happy, and it does make a huge difference, especially in times like these.
Yeah, and we can move on past this, but man, I just remember back in May and June, and some people that I know that were actually being hurt by COVID. Their businesses were just not doing well. They were still at home. I knew some people that had to take pay cuts to keep their companies open, and people asking, "Oh, man, how are things with you?" And I was like, "Man, we're doing better than we've ever done. This is crazy." And you felt kind of a little bit of push and pull. Like, I felt great because things were good, but you felt bad
Absolutely.
because not everybody was going through the same thing. So I completely understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, man, I know I met you for the first time last January at Winter
Hmm.
NAM, and it was real quick. But that was obviously a pleasure to be able to do that, man. But that was the first time that I had learned that, man, you have a business as well that has a very focused a niche here called Podcast Outfitters. Man, I'd love to jump into that. Man, tell me all about it. And then, of course, I'd love to kind of, learn a few things about the industry that maybe our listeners are going to be really interested in hearing. So,
Sure, yeah. So, about, I guess it's almost a year and a half or so ago. I mean, we sell recording equipment like most other stores do, SM7Bs like you're using, interfaces, mixers, and stuff like that. Um, and we were selling a fair amount of podcast stuff. I mean, podcast has been
sure,
booming. I mean,
yeah,
you guys have been doing it for a while, and there's good reason. It's an incredible. It's like the rebirth of the golden age of radio. It's a super interesting market. But I started to think like, what? How did you find me to buy podcast equipment? Like, did you know the store because of we've been around a long time? You got your first trumpet here. Like, why did you come to me to buy podcast equipment? Why were you thinking about that?
Mm.
And I just started to think like, why would a chef or why would a business person or why would someone that's not in the music world already think to come to a music store to buy podcast equipment?
yeah,
Um, not that we don't make sense. Like we do make sense in some ways. We sell recording stuff. Like some people may make that jump, but not everyone would. Some people think podcasting is a totally different thing, even though it's literally the same thing as recording, on your
Mm.
computer. So that was kind of my brainchild for Podcast Outfitters, was to make a place for podcasters that's agnostic of music, that is just the equipment they need to do
yeah,
podcasting. I started off with some kits of different shapes and sizes, thinking that might work for different types of people, and that did pretty well. But what I found was um, most people that are interested in podcasting have probably tried a little bit. They probably have a mixer, they probably have a microphone, they've done something, they've made an attempt, and now they want to do better.
yeah,
So that's when, in the last couple of months, I've loaded hundreds more products on the website, just because there's a lot of different ways to podcast. There is no one way to do it. Some people do it like we're doing it right now, through a Google Hangout or through Zoom or through Teams or through StreamYard. Some people do just audio only and will do phone calls. So there's the amazing thing, and I think that why it's boomed a lot in the last year and a half is that there are incredible products out right now that make this a breeze. It used to be literally like running a recording studio, and you kind of either had to go into a broadcast studio or recording studio to be able to handle something like a phone
mm-hmm.
call adequately, or you'd have to send them a Zoom recorder and have them record their set and then bring it back and then edit it in and do some goofy stuff. Like it wasn't the simplest thing to do, especially for someone that doesn't consider themselves an audio engineer
Mm-hmm.
or anything related to it. You are a real estate person, or you are a business person, or you are a chef, or you're a musician and you're not on the recording side of it. You just love guitars, or you love whatever you love. That's the beauty of podcasting, is that it can be so accessible and you can be so specific and niche about it. And that's why there's more podcasts now than ever. And so many podcasts, even as niche as you can be, can have a market because people can listen to what they want to listen to now. It's audio on demand. It's like YouTube. It's like you can listen to whatever you want to, from whoever you want to, and hear their insights and their take on things if you like their personality and their flavor and what they're talking about. So it's a very interesting market to jump into.
Yeah, and looking at some of what you've got going on, there was actually some videos that you guys have put up, and one of them was "What is a podcast?" So is that something that is important for people to understand? I mean, are you trying to put out a specific philosophy about what a podcast should achieve? Or, I don't know, explain a little bit. And I saw in the disclaimer, it said the heated debate about podcasts. And I was like, man, were these people yelling at each other?
Well, my take on like what a podcast is
Yeah.
really that it is that,
Yeah.
some people are like purists, I'll call them,
Sure,
like
I know.
it's audio
Yeah.
only, like it
Yeah.
only can be on audio, it must be
Yeah.
on the Apple Podcast app or something along those lines, and that is it. And if
Yeah.
you do anything more than that, you're doing a stream or you're doing something else.
Mm.
I disagree. Um, Obviously, we're doing video here, and this is
Mhm.
a podcast. I mean, I think that it's on-demand content that has an audio component, um, but it can take a lot of forms. There's fiction podcasts. I mean, there's people that tell stories, and there's
Yes.
I mean, Serial, I mean, like, that's not the norm, but
Hmm.
you can't do that on you couldn't you these days, you can't really be successful doing that on radio,
Hmm.
or you couldn't do that in a lot of other mediums. You're not gonna have a television show or anything like that. You're not gonna necessarily get it at the onset, like iHeartMedia wasn't doing podcasts. So there were not these mediums and these ways to do these sort of things, and that's the beauty of a podcast is it can really be anything. And the idea that video can't be a part of it, I think that anyone that thinks that is shooting themselves in the foot. That there's more reach with video. There's marketing potential. There's opportunities if you have video to bring people into either the audio side or the video side. I think even now, especially with people being at home more, video is probably taken off more than just the audio side, because audio used to blow up because we were going to gyms or we were driving in our car.
Hmm.
We were doing things where we needed our eyes and needed to pay attention, but we wanted to listen to something. We wanted continuing education, or we wanted to be entertained, or we wanted to gain insights. I mean, that's certainly why I listened to the music retail show, was I wanted to know what was going on in our industry and just to hear how other people thought about different obstacles or different brands, or how they were, achieving success, and
Hmm.
how I might, take on that. Um, that's what podcasting can do, and you couldn't be so specific and have the music retail show on radio,
Yeah.
like traditional, airwave radio, but you can definitely have that and find your market, and people can consume it on a podcast. I think it's more wide open than people really give it credit for being.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I've heard a bunch of stories about people like a healthcare company will have a podcast internally that maybe a doctor will have a podcast just to go to the employees of that company so they can disperse information. And I thought, man, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So, potentially, as you're trying to reach more customers, you start to realize that, man, they are everywhere. I mean, anybody can use a podcast to achieve specific purposes that they need.
And there's no right or wrong.
Hmm.
It doesn't need to be an hour. It could be 5 minutes. It can be 30 minutes. It could be an
Hmm.
hour. It's just consumable audio focused content, that
Hmm.
is on demand. It's not that it's maybe there's a live component to it, but it's so that you can go back and listen to it. And there's a catalog of them, and you can go back and listen and dive into it if you want to. So it's so much more widespread than people give it credit for being, for sure.
Yeah, and I would love your take on some of this too. That I've had conversations with a lot of our dealers here at MYRC about podcasts. What do you think about the idea of individual music stores potentially having a podcast? Maybe once a month, twice a month, to be able to reach customers or education, or maybe they need to reach students. Like, what do you think about that? Is that something that in this day and age that music store owners should work towards?
I think it's a great idea, and we talked about it for a while, and while we were shut down, that's something we do it as a stream, that's available on YouTube. We don't actually we're going to start ripping the audio and posting it as podcast, but we started doing a weekly live stream,
Yeah.
Chuck Levin's Live, and as a way to interact with our customers and our audience, and to interact with manufacturers, product demonstrations or product announcements, or just sometimes I just bring in my guitar guys and we just talk about what's new in the guitar department. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a great way to either reach new customers or just maintain contact with current customers. Instagram is one good way of doing it, but not everybody's on Instagram. Facebook is another, but not everybody's going to see it on Facebook. So we simulcast it on YouTube also, so all kinds of people can see it. It's up there for forever, and we've had amazing guests, and it's especially now, like, you have more access to people than you probably ever have.
Hmm.
So it's a great opportunity to bring value to your customers, to your local market, or reach people that might not be in your local market that you might have something that they want to hear from. So there's definitely a major opportunity to have some fun with it and to share. I mean, we're all in music for a reason. We love the industry. It's not, if we all wanted to make tons and tons of money, we'd probably be doing other things. Um, we're in it because we
Yeah.
love music, and we're passionate about it. And we care about our customers, and we care about making music and the gear and what's behind it, what it goes into it. So just to be able to share that with people
Yeah.
and get interaction. The cool part about doing it live, we use a service called StreamYard. which is super easy. We looked at a lot of different platforms. StreamYard is streaming made easy. You can have different video feeds and have all kinds of cool ways of doing it, but you also can get live comments. So we get a lot of questions. People can interact with us right then and there. So it's a great tool. It's absolutely a way to engage an audience, and there's no better customer than the customers that already know about you. So just being able to deliver something to them that on a weekly basis. I mean, I have regulars on that engage with us on the stream. They know Wednesday nights at 6 o'clock. It's Chuck Levin's live. They're tuning in. They're there. They're ready to go.
That's right, and that's kind of the power of what I think about when when I encourage music store owners to go, man, think about your own podcast, and it's like you're the natural tendency for most people is to go, well, it's going to be so much, it's tons of work to get to 10,000 downloads or listeners or whatever the metric is, and it's like, no, that's not the point. If you have 50 to 100 people that want to listen to what you have to say because they care about what you say, they can walk into your store, they can buy online, they trust you, that is targeted marketing right there. And it's a way.
It doesn't get any better.
Yeah, it doesn't get any better. And you can literally engage those people like you're talking about. And I'd love for you to explain, just for some of our listeners, the difference between, we talked about video and audio, but streaming specifically, like what do you mean by that? And how is that different than just podcasting?
So the nature of the podcast, I would say, is that it's recorded and it's available to consume at any time. If you're not available, sometimes people do a live podcast, but the nature of the podcast is that recording is going to be available kind of like Netflix, right? That I can watch this when I want to watch it. And that's important. That's why all of our stuff is archived on Facebook and YouTube. And we will be kind of ripping the audio out to just do an audio only component to it. But so much of what we've done has been visual that the video component's important. And the streaming, I would say, is the live component. So streaming is if people were watching what we're doing right now, I'd say that's the stream. And that, there's a lot of services out there. There's Caster, there's Restream, there's probably 10 more out there right now that I haven't even mentioned. You can use OBS to stream, which is like the Pro Tools of video mixing and streaming, which is pretty complicated, but it's free. So if you really want to take something to the next level and try out some really cool stuff with video, OBS is a great tool. But to be live, these like Facebook and YouTube, they developed a whole live component. And you got to understand, the game with all these social media platforms, YouTube being one of them, and Facebook and all these other ones, is that their job is to make sure that people stay on their platforms. That's how that's their like business function. Yes, it's to deliver content and connect people, but it's really to keep you engaged on the platform. And they develop these tools. And so if Facebook says, we're going to do a live thing and we're going to give you access to do it, Facebook tells you when other people that you follow often are going live. Yeah. So like they're trying to draw you back in. Like take that as a signal to be like, oh, if I do this, maybe Facebook will bring more people to my stream too. If they're fans of your page already, use the tools for what they are, which is a way to just engage and bring more people in and entertain and nurture an audience.
Do you think live streaming is something that people should jump into, like a music store should go just start doing it right away? Or do you think that they need to kind of establish an audience that somebody's going to pay attention to that first? What's your philosophy?
I mean, we have a lot of fans on Facebook. It's not always like guaranteed that you're gonna, Facebook, when you're a business on Facebook, you have to pay to play. Like they make it that way. Like if you make a post, only 10% of your fans are going to see it organically. And then if you want any more than that, then you got to put some ads out there or have a really engaging post. If a lot of people engage on it, they'll put it out to more of your fans. So like there's the algorithm, right? That is worth noting. But when we started our stream, we just like, you know what, let's just do it. Let's just try it. Like if no one watches it, fine. We're going to figure ourselves out. We're going to learn what works and what doesn't. And over time, we've developed more of a system to it. And now we have kind of a better cadence about it and how we market it and how we post about it each weekend before going into the next week's stream. And sometimes I've been like, oh, man, we don't have anything to talk about this week. And my guys are like, no. Wednesday at 6, we're going to do something. I don't care what it is. Even if we talk about just whatever's new in the store, we got to do something. Consistency is key. And we're like, I think we're 30 weeks strong now.
Okay.
And it's been great. It's been I mean, when I started, I was a nervous wreck. I like talking to people like
Yeah.
in an audience. I like vibing off of another human being.
Uh-huh.
So to be staring at myself on a screen
Yeah.
and just talking to people was like, I was
Yeah,
like,
like
I have to have
this is
uh,
abnormal. I can't do this now.
I have to have a
Yeah.
script and I have to follow it. And then I'm reading over here and I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. And after like 3 or 4 of them, like I just ditched the script and I just let, find good guests and just have fun and just walk in and just have a great conversation because
Yeah.
that's interesting. And just let your audience ask you questions. Even if there's just 2 people there, that's 2 people that you weren't talking to a minute ago.
That's right.
It's worth something, and they'll tell
Yeah.
someone else. I do some things like tell people I'll give away T-shirts, and I'll say tag your friends, and I'll pick 5 people at random, and they get a T-shirt.
Yeah.
But by the nature of them tagging other people, they're bringing more people into the stream,
Yeah.
and maybe they find it interesting too. So it can be a lot of fun, and you can use it a lot of different ways.
Speaking of T-shirts, I love that T-shirt you got on, and what's funny is I read that a couple times, and the microphone was covering part of it, so I didn't see the whole thing. And now that when I saw it, I was like, oh, I've got to have that T-shirt. So very
Knob
cool.
goes to Levin.
I love it.
We're
Did
gonna
you
make
think of that?
we're gonna make actual knobs now too.
Are you
To,
really?
to go with the T-shirts. You have to.
Man.
Have to do it. It's been
Yeah.
requested enough that I think now I
Yeah.
have enough demand that I think I can sell a couple knobs that go to Levin.
Yeah.
It's gonna be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and of course, it needs to be on a Les Paul and a Marshall. But
Has to be.
yeah. But hey, and I'm interested. How many? So, when you guys did your first stream, how many people were actually showed up on it?
I mean, maybe 10 or 15.
Oh, that's way better. I thought you were gonna say like one, and I was gonna be like, it's the perfect story.
Well, probably like 4 of them, like my mom, my sister, my grandma.
That's right.
Like, I was like, guys, I'm going live. Just like be there and watch it
Yeah.
with me.
Yeah.
But if you share, like, just pay attention to these platforms because they work in ways where if you're doing good stuff and other people enjoy what you're doing, they serve you to more people.
Yeah.
And that's how these things work. If Facebook deems your content as being engaging, if you're getting a lot of comments and a lot of likes or whatever, just from the people that are on it, they're going to give you to maybe 10 more people.
Yeah.
And then maybe 20 more, and then more and more and more after that. So there's a consistency aspect to this for sure. But acknowledging your audience was something that I learned about, letting them do some of the work for you, having them share. We now we use a service that we do a lot of giveaways now. So we bring manufacturers in to help us out. We promote them. They love the exposure. And like you said before, this is a very targeted market. This is a very targeted thing. This isn't just like, putting an ad on Facebook and reaching tons of people. This is people that already like you. They're willing to stay around and listen to what you have to say. So it's a great reason to dive into this world.
Yeah. What do you think about, I don't know. I'm actually just thinking about this right now. What do you think about ads on podcasts? Is that, I realize from a business side, it's a great idea. Do you think listeners don't mind consuming ads on podcasts?
I think it's got to be done tastefully, and I think that you don't want to like respect your audience for sure. I mean, you want to make sure you have good audio. You want to make sure you have something engaging content. You want to make sure you don't like waste their time and just hit them with a ton of ads. I think that's why people like podcasting more than just general radio, is that half of the radio stations are advertising companies that have content in between ads.
That's exactly right.
It's a totally different thing. Podcasting is content for content's sake. And if you can find a way to monetize that tastefully, I think your audience will respond well to it.
That's a great point.
If you have a cooking podcast and there's a local company that makes pots and pans, or like you talk to an audience that is very specific, you talk to people that are aged 30 to 40, because I'm talking about this type of cooking in this type, and that's who I am too, and that's who listens to me. Some brand out there that wants to talk to that audience, and they'll never get a more. Your audience trusts you. They trust you as a host. They trust you as someone that they've tuned into enough to know you to some degree. So if you say, don't waste that, right? Like if you think this, don't don't make it all about the money. Like if you think this
Sure.
ad is gonna provide good value to your audience,
Hmm.
then I think it's absolutely worth doing. And I think that there's definitely it's a win-win-win. Your audience should find value in it. The brand will find value in it, and you'll get some money out of it too. Like there's
Yeah.
no problem with
No,
that.
no, no, not at all.
Um, you have to. I mean, you have to. People understand that like this stuff ain't necessarily cheap, but to deliver good quality to your audience, there has to be a money component to it. So I think it's absolutely fair to do. I think you'd be foolish not to consider it, but it's about doing it the right way.
Yeah, and I'm just sitting here thinking about the overall package for, again, going back to, to our listeners, encouraging music stores or online retailers to have a podcast to talk about what they're doing, and there's no reason why, if a music store has a successful podcast that maybe one of the manufacturers or companies that they're affiliated with could not run commercials on that because it's doing exactly what you just described, so it's something that's
Totally.
beneficial for the listener. So
Yeah. We use it to, we work with our partners to get giveaways or cool gear or help with ad spend, or there's lots of ways that you can work with partners in a
mhm.
lot of different ways. And monetizing doesn't necessarily need to be like a profit center, but it can be cost savings, or it can be to reach a bigger audience. There's a lot of ways to work with partners to bring value to everybody.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, man. If anybody has any questions about getting started, obviously they can reach out to you potentially,
Totally.
and which is a great, I think, is a great transition. I'd love to talk about your website, so and what you guys have to offer. And if we could just talk about a few things that people can use to get started, if they're on a budget, just I'd like to kind of go that direction. So, what
Yeah.
what's the website? And let's talk about that for a little bit.
So podcastoutfitters.com is going to have, everything from USB microphones to podcast recorders and mixers to, you know, the legendary SM7B and everything in between. Um, there it is right there.
Hmm.
And, I'm basically like the tech support on it.
Yeah.
So if you have questions about gear that you have, I mean, like I said earlier, like a lot of people have something. They have a Zoom recorder that
Hmm.
they use to record their band at some point, or they have an SM58 microphone that they've used live for a presentation or something.
Yeah.
They just have one kicking around because they last forever. We can help you fill in the blanks and make this work. Like it is not rocket science, and I love helping people take advantage of what they already have
Yeah.
to just get started, because when you get started and you see the value in what you're doing, if you love it, you'll want to make it easier for yourself, and you want to make it more engaging for your audience, and then we can help you do that too. But it does not take a lot to get started. Um, you know, do you need a computer at some point? Absolutely. Do you need to be a wizard of Pro Tools? Certainly not. You can get this done without, and that's where I focused a lot of energy in the beginning. Was I wanted to develop, and I have like guidebooks on how to use some of the mixers and stuff out there to get a good audio recording as you're doing it the first time, so that when you hit stop, you could post that and have a reasonably good sounding podcast.
Hmm.
Yes, there's always more that can be done to make something sound better. Um, Editing and post, potentially picking better equipment, controlling your environment. But if you pick the right recorder, I think the method at which you're going to record so that you understand what you're doing, that's step number one.
Yeah.
So whether that's something like a Zoom H4n Pro, or a Tascam DR40X, just something that can multi-track record, I think is important. And I tell a lot of people about multi-track recording. Yeah, if you aced it the first time through and you have the good recording, great. But if you definitely want to multi-track record when you're doing a podcast, so that if something happens, if someone's mic just starts going haywire, for whatever reason, it doesn't ruin the recording.
Yeah. And it will happen.
So it everything that will
Yeah.
happen will happen.
Mm,
Everything bad that's going to happen will
mm.
happen at
That's
least one time to you, and you'll
yes.
learn. But
Yeah.
maybe that was like the greatest moment, and
Yeah.
you definitely didn't want to miss that. That you were saying something really important, and I sneezed in the middle of it, and boy, did I just mess up the tone of that whole thing. If I multi-track record it, then I can edit myself out, and your recording is still pristine. So, finding a device that allows for multi-track recording, I think, is key. Zoom recorders do that. Tascam recorders do that. There's been and what's cool is the technology, and I think I was getting to this and I went off on a tangent, but the technology that is available now has made this so much easier for someone to do this the right way without being a wizard of traditional recording technology. That's what's made podcasting so accessible and made it blow up. And these companies that have developed these tools are continuing to make it better and easier. Zoom just came out with the PodTrack P4, which is kind of like the H4n, but made specifically for podcasting. It has 4 mic inputs. It has 4 headphone outputs. It can record to SD. It can have a Bluetooth attachment, so you can do phone calls. And it does the echo cancellation for you, and it's $199.
Really?
So like that is a home run. Zoom killed it with that thing. And if you watch our video on the MV7, which is the Shure mic I'm using right now, we recorded the entire thing in the PodTrack P4. It's got enough gain to drive an SM7B without needing a cloud lifter, which is remarkable. Which, you know, people that use an SM7B know that it's pretty gain hungry and you got to be like right up on it, or you need a cloud lifter. You got to have a good recording interface or something along those lines to make it sound good. The P4 was designed specifically knowing that people use that microphone and they want to have something affordable that sounds great, that gets the job done. So that's fantastic. They also came out with the larger P8. Zoom came out with the PodTrack P8, which is more of a mixer style podcast recorder. It has a touch screen. You can layer in, you can drop in sound samples. Maybe it's background music, maybe it's intro, outro music, and you can actually do some of the editing on the screen. So again, you don't need to be a wizard of audio. You can do a fade in and a fade out on the screen just by moving your fingers around and have it be done for you. And if you kind of just plan ahead a little bit, you can have a great sounding podcast when you're done. The end all be all, the Rodecaster Pro, made by Rode Microphones, is the top of the line podcast specific recorder. It's a phenomenal piece of equipment. I literally have one sitting underneath my desk, and that's what I use to do all my Teams calls, all my Zoom calls, and my live streams from the store. I'm using that recorder, and that, I mean, it's just it's like the iPad of podcast recorders. It's simple, it's elegant, it works really well. It works for every situation you want to do. Tons of features. I could dive into that for days and days and days. But like I said, if you have an audio interface that you use for something else and you have a microphone, you can start a podcast right now. You don't need anything else. There's you don't need these tools. You just need a way to record. You could just start it on your phone. You could just start recording audio on your phone and get going. It's more, the content matters more, but I always tell people, especially when we talk about video and stuff, people are willing to deal with a little bit of like okay video, but they will not stick around if the audio is bad.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
You cannot deal with it. Like if it's crackly or if it's dropping in and out, you will just leave. So audio is first in a podcast. It has to be first in a stream too. It has to come first. People are there, they want to hear what's going on and they want to enjoy it. So microphone selection is also very important. There is a spectrum of microphones. Some absolutely are better than others. I'm all for there being a solution, like microphones being just a good tool. And there's nothing wrong with using any microphone, but there's definitely microphones that sound a certain way that people resonate with.
Well, and you think about it too. I go, where do I listen to my podcasts? Well, 90% of them are in the car. And, you know, not everybody is driving around in a $60,000 Lexus, which includes me. I'm not, you know, and so you get a little road noise and you got to turn your stereo up a little bit. And there's been plenty of times on professional podcasts, even where you're sitting there listening to something and the volume is just too low. Somebody didn't set something right and you're cranking it. And then the next person comes in and it's blaring loud and you're turning it down. And I go, I'm not listening to this. I'm out. I'll go to the next one. And
absolutely. It's and especially when it comes to like phone calls too, like if you're listening to a podcast and they brought in a phone call and they're on like speakerphone or something like that, sometimes like the volumes there are awful. You're like leaning in, like I need to hear this, but then you're driving. So microphone selection and the method that which you're going to record are key.
Yeah.
Because if you're smart about how you go about it, you'll capture the audio in a way that is perfectly acceptable for the final product.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and ask you to plug the mic you're using because I think it sounds great. And earlier when we were talking, the mic was completely off the camera and you sounded perfect. And I was sitting there going, what is he using? Doesn't even look like he's using a microphone, but that's something a little bit newer.
So Shure saw the writing on the wall. Shure Microphones, legendary microphone company, obviously. SM7Bs have been incredibly popular in the world of broadcast and podcasting for sure. I mean, Joe Rogan uses it, Gary Vaynerchuk uses it. Everybody has an SM7B that's doing the thing.
Yeah.
And so Shure in the last couple of months has been working really hard on this, and they came out with the MV7.
Yep. Nice.
Which is basically like a small dynamic, and it is an SM7B made for the podcasting world that might not know what it really takes to make an SM7B sound its best. The MV7 kind of removes some of those hurdles, makes it a little bit easier. It's got that sound. It's still got a little bit of that beef in the low end. It's still got that presence that you want. It's got nice articulation and detail on the top. It's a dynamic microphone. So, there's a lot of ways to podcast. Like I said, like you can use any microphone to podcast, condenser, whatever you want to do. This is another thing, as I talk to more, like podcasters don't know going into it. They've read a lot of stuff and there's a lot of garbage information out there. There's a lot of people that say stuff that is just completely wrong about, oh, you need this, you need this, you need this. People always are asking for, is that a directional microphone? Yeah. Like that, like, yes, it is. Like most are. That's the wrong question. Is it going to pick up what's in front of it and reject what's going on around it? So like if I'm off here, I'm not sure that you probably hear me pretty terribly, but right here I'm sounding really good. I always recommend people to use dynamic microphones. I think that they're just way easier to manage. Especially people are not going to be in an isolation booth. They're not going to be in a room where they totally can control everything around them. There will be an air conditioning. There will be a car that drives by. Something's going to happen. And if you're on a dynamic microphone, you have more control over what you're picking up.
Yeah.
The MV7 is very cool and unique in that it's an XLR and a USB microphone. Yeah. So right now I'm using it just straight mic USB to the computer.
My goodness.
But if you look at the back here, and it's a great, I mean, I don't know that I've heard a USB microphone. Certainly there's very few dynamic USB microphones. And this one is got to be one of the best sounding and one that's easily mounted on a mic stand.
Yeah.
I just have it on a small desktop stand. When you use it USB, there's actually an app that you can download from Shure, and you can actually, if you just want to see what it does, you can download it from the website. You don't need the microphone to download it. You need it to use it. But it has an auto level setting, and whatever settings you use with the mic, it actually stores the settings in the microphone. So you said, when we started, that I actually had the mic off screen, and so there's an auto level setting where it's catching, where it knows I'm further away. It's going to turn the gain up a little bit. It knows I'm getting closer. Going to turn the gain down a little bit. Even if I get really close, I'm still not clipping and distorting.
Oh, yeah, you can hear it.
Right there, you kind of heard it.
Yeah.
Cut down a little bit there. So it's like having an audio engineer in your microphone, which is really smart.
Yeah.
Especially like if you're a streamer, a video game streamer or something like that. You don't want to be futzing around with your computer and messing with knobs and gains and stuff like that, especially if you like start to shout and get really excited about stuff. That auto level 7 setting is a saver.
Yeah.
For the music people out there, it's like having someone ride the fader, but also having a compressor on it so that you're never going to really clip and distort.
Yeah.
And then it has some EQ settings. So it has like a dark setting if you want to have more of that voice of God, that deep SM7B sort of sound, or if you're in a noisier environment and you want your mic to cut through better, it has a bright setting so that all the articulation and detail in your voice is in that higher frequency spectrum. So it has a setting that you can just boost those highs and come through nice, clean, and crisp, and make sure that what you're saying is intelligible when you're driving in a car or listening in AirPods or sitting at your computer desk and listening through your monitor speakers that might just be so-so. So it's a very cool mic. But then when you do if you do go, you know, grow your podcast or find yourself in a situation where you have people in the room with you and you're not going to go USB anymore, you're going to use a mixer.
Yeah.
It goes XLR out. It's a great sounding dynamic microphone on its own, no processing. It just is a great mic,
Yeah.
and you can use it both ways. You can actually record both ways. In the demo video that we did for Podcast Outfitters, I'm recording it simultaneously, USB and XLR, and we dip between both ways so you can hear the difference and just hear how it sounds in both situations.
Yeah,
Super
man,
cool.
it's a great sounding microphone, and you know, I'm sitting there saying that because I just feel like, you know, they can go to your website, they can pick it up there, and I think in this grand scheme of things of microphones, it's an affordable microphone. You know,
It is for what it does. It's absolute. I mean, 249 is especially being USB and XLR and having this processing available to it. Like you're buying, it's almost like having a mixer and a microphone. And like most USB microphones are just that.
yeah,
Like you can use it USB, and if you ever want to do anything else, you got to buy something else. So you're
hmm
already going to spend another $100 on something else at some point anyway. If you bought a USB microphone,
yeah,
you can buy this, and you can just do it all.
yeah, and obviously looking at your website too, you guys have you know, you have kits already ready to go for, you know, hey, if you got 4 people, you got 8. Who would ever have 8 people on their podcast? I don't know
I don't
about that.
know.
I don't know
I
about
hope
that.
not
That's
too
like,
many. But
but
and we're
4,
working on
yeah,
more. I mean,
yeah,
this, you know, this came out and gave me a lot of ideas. So we're
yeah.
gonna have new kits coming up in the next week or
Okay.
so, um, built around this microphone and other similar microphones. Like I mentioned, those recorders. So,
hmm
you know, the P4 I think is gonna be a home run. I think that people will find that, like, I even used the P4 to record. We had Taylor Guitars come and shoot some videos for us for some of our custom built Taylor guitars. We
Really?
just shot this on Tuesday. And you know what? I was like, let's just use the P4. Like it's easy. It
hmm
sounds great. I can just plug my Neumann mic into it and just put it up right next to the guitar and have it rock. And it's just it's, you know, for my video guy who's no, you know, audio recording wizard, it's just plug it in, hit record, and it's just going to sound great. So it's a phenomenal tool, and a lot of these companies are really now thinking and understanding what the podcaster needs,
hmm
and your life in the world of making a podcast. The gear should unlock doors on ways that you can create content. It should not be a barrier, and it should not hinder you in doing so. There is absolutely an easier way to do something. If you're having trouble, hit me up. Like there's an easier way to go about this. There's a more elegant way to do this thing, and you will have a lot more fun and make more engaging content when the gear gets out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking at the, you know, man, you've got that. The P4 is 199. I mean,
199.
that's just it's unbelievably affordable. You know, even for somebody who's ready to get started. And I get it. You know, hey, you're encouraging people to use equipment that maybe they already have, but man, this is an easy way to jump into something that's going to make you sound extremely professional. So,
Super easy, and it does. You can plug it into the computer. It can record our conversation on its. It can multi-track record, so it can record it can record 4 microphones, or it can record 2 microphones. It can take your feed as an individual recorded channel on the pod track, um, and handle echo cancellation. So I'm not going to get like
hmm
all the audio from the USB. I'm
yeah,
just going to get your voice through the USB. And then it has a phone call channel. So if I have a guest that is not as computer literate, someone that is not as proficient using something like, I mean, most people these days probably are, but you definitely still have people out there that do not enjoy getting on a Zoom call, don't know how to find the link or get onto it. So if they're more comfortable,
yeah,
you've
yeah.
had them. Um, I hear your producer laughing back there.
Yeah.
If you have someone that would prefer to just get on a phone call,
Yeah.
but you still got to record it the right way, the PodTrack has a Bluetooth adapter
Yeah.
that you can just Bluetooth your phone to it, hit phone call. They hear you on your microphone, and you're recording them again on their own track
hmm
that you then can
Yeah.
edit or
Yeah.
adjust on its own.
Genius.
It's genius, and it's crazy how cheap that thing is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it, it really does make a big difference when the gear helps you do it instead of you trying to figure out how to make the gear work for you. When the gear just
hmm
does it for you, eh, things just get really fun.
Well, Adam, I really want to know what do I need to buy so that I can be in 5.1 surround sound?
we, we can go down that road if you want to, but I think that's a whole different podcast.
Yeah, or even like stereo, I just or something, But yeah, it's a whole different podcast. So, but and I'm noticing, obviously, navigating through your website, you guys have do you have some tutorials or some continuing education where people can kind of get some of your philosophies of maybe how they can become better at what they're doing?
Absolutely. And, I mean, that's part of it. And I even I talk on a lot of different, I talk to a lot of different groups about podcasting and the equipment. I mean, no one situation is cookie cutter. There's definitely like best practices that you can deploy. Like I've talked about a couple of them, the type of microphone you're going to use, just knowing the tools makes this process easier. It's once you understand a little bit of it, it's not rocket science. You can
Hmm.
pretty much figure out how to go about doing something, what can be better and what should be better, but being knowledgeable about the craft that you're kind of jumping into definitely can change the game. And we're also like I said, like I'm customer support. Like if you have questions, just like we're not like many of you out there, like we're just trying to help people do good stuff. So don't be shy if you don't know how to make the most of, you have a great microphone but you don't know how to use it for podcasting, let's figure it out.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. Is there anything else we're missing? I'd love to, anything you want listeners to realize that I've missed here or that we've missed. Is there anything else you're thinking of?
The worst thing that you can do in podcasting is not start.
Oh, see,
If
there it is.
you know
That should have been the first thing we started out with.
if you have an idea and you think you might want to try it, you will learn a lot doing it the first time and the second time and the third
Third time.
time. And if you make it to the fourth time, you're probably like in it and you're going to have some fun doing it. And even if you have 10 listeners, we talked about this in the beginning,
Hmm.
even if there's only a couple listeners, they are hyper focused and that that's worth something to someone, whether you're making their day brighter or that could even, we talked about marketing, all these things, like having a very specific targeted market. You could talk about Smurfs, you could talk about music, you could talk about cereal, you could talk about anything.
Mm,
Someone out there wants to listen to that kind of thing too. If you
yeah.
enjoy what you're talking about, I'm positive someone else out there wants to listen to it too and wants to engage with you in some way. So the worst thing that you could do is just not try.
Yeah, and I don't know about Smurfs. I'm going to worry a little bit about the listeners if you're talking about Smurfs.
They're out there.
Oh, I
They're
know
out
they
there.
absolutely are out there. But we actually had a guest on a little while ago. He's a guitar player named Rhett Shull that has is really into YouTubing. Has a lot of video followers. And you know what the funny thing is his advice boiled down to the exact same thing. You just have to start, and you just have to do it. So, and I just think podcastoutfitters.com is a great place. It's a resource. You can get what you need. You can email you. You can get feedback. You can get encouragement. And I even saw, even on your website, you have a free studio upgrade consulting. So even for the professional, you can help them get even better at what they're doing.
Absolutely. Like I said, like it lives inside the music store. So if you have a professional recording studio and you want to work with podcasters, let's talk about how we can make that happen. Because there's absolutely a market out there. Maybe you're having a hard time right now, in the recording business with, social restrictions and not being able to have bands come in. But podcasting is an avenue that you could
Oh,
definitely
yeah,
dip into
absolutely, man.
and do good business and help people do something very impactful and cool. Let's turn your studio into a podcast studio. Let's find a way to do it. You already got the tools. I'm happy to help you. It doesn't need to sell you something. Maybe you just need a widget that makes it work.
Hmm.
Whatever it is, there's definitely a way to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now to close us out, the easiest question of the day. What do you predict 2021 is going to look like compared to this year?
Better, I hope. Um, um, I mean, I think that I don't think there's any signs of a lot of things that have come of this. I think are good. I mean, hard to say, but there have been some good things that have come from some of these experiences.
Oh
Being
yeah.
able to communicate, being able to communicate like this,
Mhm.
us doing live streams, podcasting, online sales. These things, when we opened back up, when the country opened back up, online sales didn't slow down. They maintained,
Yeah.
and I see that continuing. And I see that streaming will continue and podcasting will continue and making engaging content will continue. So these are things that were kind of existing before. And now there's a lot of focus on them. Now's the time to jump in, figure it out so that you can have a successful 2021. Do not start in 2021. Start now.
Start now.
Start right now. You got some time. Even if you don't have time, make some time, because it's definitely, obviously we're doing this for a reason, because this is a thing to do right now. Like, take advantage of what's happening right now as best you possibly can and make the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Way to great word to close it out on, man. I appreciate that a ton. So we're just trying to encourage our listeners to be better at business, to grow, to encourage themselves and to challenge themselves, if anything else. So, and this has been the year to do that. I'll tell you what.
That's for sure.
So, but anyways, Adam, man, I appreciate you a ton. In a lot of situations, man, we'd love to have you back on in the future, and maybe just a rotation. This is an industry that's growing. There's going to be new things to talk about. Love to keep people up to date. It's a huge part of the music retail industry right now, so it's important to us. So
would love to. Like we actually talked about, I'm starting a podcast about podcasting.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's a thing to do. So there's always new stuff coming out. There's always new things to talk about. Would love to come back, talk about music, talk about podcasting, everything between. It's a ton of fun. This has been great. I appreciate the time and you having me on. It's been great.
Perfect. Thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. And hey, have a great rest of the week. Enjoyed it a ton. Thank you.
The Music Retail Show is brought to you by MIRC LLC, providing solutions for the musical instrument community by being a reliable source for diverse music products. If you need inventory for your music store, pawn shop, or e-commerce site, go to mircweb.com to find out more.